Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everybody who's joining us. I can see the numbers increasing at the moment, so we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to get into the webinar. It's lovely to see so many of you here. Welcome to the UCL Medical School Virtual Open Day. We'll start in a couple of minutes. Okay, so the numbers seem to have stabilized there. Welcome everybody to the UCL Medical School Virtual Open Day today. It's great that so many of you have joined us, that you're thinking about coming to medical school, potentially thinking about coming to UCL, potentially even coming to the UK. It's great that so many of you are thinking about this as a future career. My name's Sarah Bennett. I am the admissions tutor for the Medicine Degree Programme at UCL Medical School. I'm also the Deputy Programme Lead, so I get involved in lots of different aspects of the course. I'm also a UCL graduate myself, and so I do know UCL quite well. But we would love to hear more from you. So please do, whilst I'm going through this presentation at the beginning, pop some questions into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen there. So the two little speech bubbles. If you click on that, it will bring up another screen and you'll be able to type in a question. Whilst I'm presenting, my colleagues that are in the background will be typing some answers to those, or we'll choose some of those questions for us to answer live in the Q&A part later on in this session. I can see the first question, will there be an in-person open day? Not for this term, but certainly next summer. So we tend to do them in June, July time. There will be in-person open days. We did do some this summer as well, and it was fantastic to see so many people on campus and meet so many prospective applicants. So yes, there will be, and I hope you can join us. So do keep those questions coming. We love the questions. So welcome. Let's move on. So the first thing that I'd love to know is who is joining us? Where across the world are you joining us from? Are you in the UK, in London, outside of London? Are you in our devolved nations? Are you in Europe, Asia, Africa, Americas, Australasia? It'd be lovely to hear where you're coming from. Gosh, for those of you in Americas, it must be quite late at night at the moment, I would imagine, or maybe it's early in the morning. I've got it the wrong way around, early in the morning. Brilliant, that's really helpful. So quite a lot of you are from in and around London or outside of London, so welcome. Great to see you all here. You may well be from year 13. You might have just started year 13 and you're doing your application at the moment, in which case I wish you the best of luck. And some of you may well be just starting year 12 or even earlier, and you're just thinking about this as a process. And so hopefully I can give you some tips for the year ahead, but also for those of you that are applying shortly, just give you a few more tips more quickly. So we also have another couple of quick questions. So have you done some homework? How many medical schools are there in the UK? Wow, look at those coming in quickly. So a bit of a spread. Some think 26, some think 34, some think 44, some think 53. No takers for 15. Ah, one taker for 15. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, well, I'm going to end the poll there. So those of you that selected 44, you were correct. So very well done. There are quite a lot of medical schools in the UK. There are some new medical schools that have opened more recently over the last 3 or 4 years. They're perhaps a little bit smaller cohort size, and they came out of the fact that the government increased the number of medical school places from 6,000 to 7,500 places. And so you can apply to a wide range of different medical schools all across the UK. I will be the first to say that they are all brilliant. We are all slightly different in terms of where we are, the size, the type of teaching that we deliver. But at the end of the day, every medical school will give you a degree that will allow you to work in the UK, and that it will make sure that you meet outcomes for graduates. Okay, so one more question for you, which is a little bit more UCL centric. When did University College London Hospital start training doctors? Just guess if you're not sure. Fabulous. So lots of you have done your research. So UCLH started training doctors in 1834. So we are a historic medical school. We've been doing it for quite a long time. So the other dates that are there, we are an amalgamation of 3 medical schools here at UCL. UCLH Medical School, which began in 1834, was the first medical school to be linked or set up and built as part of a university, to train the people that were studying at university. We are also combined with what was the Middlesex Hospital School of Medicine. That was opened in 1746, so even further back, and that's now been amalgamated with UCL. And we've also got the Royal Free Hospital School of Medicine that joined us. It was opened in 1828, but joined us in 1998. And so we officially became UCL Medical School in 2008. So we've been training doctors for a very, very long time. We've got a great history. And I think UCL has the values of being the first university to take students regardless of their background, and certainly at the Royal Free Hospital School of Medicine being the first to accept women to study medicine as well. And we want to be able to uphold those values in the future. So thank you very much for that. That was a good starting point. Get your typing fingers going. So if you've looked at our website, you may well have seen our mission statement as such. So we aim at the end of the 6 years of the course to train a highly competent and scientifically literate clinician. As a research intensive institution, we are keen that you are taught by those that are at the forefront of their research and that you are aware of current research activity and evidence-based practice, which is important for a medical career. But it's incredibly important that you become a person-centered clinician, that you are thinking about the person who is sitting in front of you, and that you're very mindful of the wider ranging aspects of medicine and healthcare, not just the condition that they have. And it is a very constantly changing modern world, isn't it? We've all seen the changes that have happened during the pandemic, for example, the rapid development of a new vaccine, and also the development of new treatments, and at UCLH, the development of a CPAP machine to help deliver oxygen to patients who are critically unwell with COVID. And so we will expose you to those aspects of medicine. And that is the exciting part of medicine. It never stands still. You are always learning something new. And so we feel that scholarship, that your learning is incredibly important, but also your professionalism, becoming part of a profession, and serving the needs of our community. Because we have a very diverse community across London, but across the UK as well. And we want to be able to train doctors to be able to see people across the UK from all backgrounds as well. So our course is 6 years in length, and that is because we have a compulsory integrated BSc in year 3. So all students will take a BSc at that point. Year 1 and 2 prepares you for that in a sense, and we think that that's a good point to do your evidence-based practice to help you moving forwards in year 4, 5 and 6. The course is described as systems-based because we teach each body system separately. So, for example, circulation and breathing in year 1, we talk about the heart and the lungs, but we're talking about the physiology, the pharmacology, the biochemistry, the pathology of that as a system all together, rather than each individual subject. And it's an integrated programme, and that is because there is clinical relevance to our teaching in year 1 and 2. We call it the fundamentals of clinical sciences, because it's important that you understand the basic medical science that underpins your clinical practice. You do need to know about the physiology and pharmacology and the biochemistry of a particular system to be able to know how to manage a problem with that system and to think about the treatments and how they work. In year 3, you can see there that we have a wide range of IBSCs. I've only put a few on the slide here, but we have over 20 different IBSCs for you to choose from, both clinical and non-clinical IBSCs. In year 4, 5 and 6, this is where you're out into the hospitals and into community-based practice to become an apprentice, to learn with and from doctors and patients, and to practice and develop the skills that you need to practice as a foundation doctor. So we go through basic medicine and surgery, through the specialties in year 5, and then in year 6 you'll be out in our district general hospitals, most of which are outside London even, so that you get a broad range of experiences to be able to really think like and act like a doctor and be as prepared as you can be for that first day of work in August. And throughout the programme, we have clinical and professional practice. This is really important to us. It's a vertical module that occurs throughout all years and comprises of 16 different topic areas, things like clinical skills, ethics and law, doctor as a data scientist, thinking about patient safety. Those are all incredibly important parts of your future clinical practice that need to come and be built upon throughout the programme itself. So we will always be asked, why should I come to UCL Medical School over the other 43 different medical schools across the UK? So what do we think is different? Well, we are in the middle of London. You can't deny that. There are 4 other medical schools in London. And I think that brings with it a uniqueness in terms of the patients that you'll see, in terms of the population, in terms of the hospitals that you will be able to go to, and in terms of the research basis that we have here as well. And so you will get the chance to rotate through some world-leading hospitals. The course structure, so we value the basic medical sciences in the early years, the IBSc in year 3, followed by an apprenticeship model. And so think about whether you would prefer to have problem-based learning or whether you would have a more traditional-based programme like we have at UCL, which is much more lecture-based, small group activity, workshops, anatomy teaching, etc. We still have full body dissection at UCL in year 1 and year 2 of the course. And I think that that's a particular value of being able to put your anatomical knowledge into practice. As I mentioned, we have a wide range of integrated BScs, from things like neuroscience and behaviour to thinking about physiology, pharmacology, but to also clinical BScs such as women's health, paediatrics and child health, sports and exercise medicine. We also have the opportunity for students to integrate a PhD into the programme as well. So a small number of students, when they're in year 4 of the programme, will apply to do a PhD. And the reason it's called an MBPhD is because you will continue to do a little bit of clinical practice alongside your research so that you can maintain your skills and come back into the clinical programme after you've completed that research in depth. But some people who are particularly interested in an academic career in the future may well wish to take up that option and spend 10 years with us at UCL. UCL is a multi-faculty institution. Not only do we have lots of science, we have arts, humanities and education, and it means that you will mix with students from all backgrounds. We have around 45,000 undergraduate and postgraduate students at UCL, so it is a huge institution, but you also therefore will mix with so many different people doing so many different courses, which I think is fantastic and gives you the opportunity to study for your IBSc in a different faculty, or to do some of our student selected components, perhaps in art and medicine, for example. We do have a rather excellent research reputation across the world. Not a day goes by when UCL is not mentioned in the press somewhere about some research or for their expertise. And so keep up to date with that. If you're wanting to apply to UCL, think about some of the research areas that we have, and you will be exposed to that high-level research whilst you're here. But I think actually what's most important to us are our students. We have a large student body, so we have 330 students in every year, so that's 2,000 students in total. And we have our Royal Free University College and Middlesex Hospital Student Society, RUMS. You are all part of RUMS, you're part of that family, that community of practice within the medical school, and you all help each other. That's what we think is most valuable when coming to medical school, is developing that relationship with your peers, helping each other through the programme. You can all pass and progress and be successful when you come to medical school, and that is our ultimate wish. And we think that RUMS is a big part of that. So not only are there sports and clubs and societies that you can join, there is also the academic side of that and the peer support that you will get from them. So now that I've convinced you that UCL is the place to apply to, how do you apply? So there is some preparation that is involved. So if you are in year 13, you probably have done this preparation already, but if you are in year 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, there is some more preparation that you can do to demonstrate your enthusiasm and motivation for a career in medicine, and to find out more. That is the key, is find out more about what it is to practice as a doctor. So get some work experience, which I'll talk to you a little bit about. Think about whether you've achieved the correct GCSE grades, that you've got the A-levels that are necessary, because you do need to study biology and chemistry at A-level or equivalent to apply to UCL. And think about wider reading blogs about medicine and healthcare, looking at the news, keeping up to date with what's going on, thinking about, we've got a new health secretary in position who may make some changes to the healthcare system. And so how can you actually keep up with that and develop the skills, the attributes and the behaviours that are necessary to work as a doctor? So things like communication skills, team working, leadership. How are you developing those skills already? Because you probably are. The application process, so you need to apply by the 15th of October. That is a set date every year. And you also need to complete the biomedical admissions test. We don't accept UCAT at UCL. And the last thing is to think about the next steps. So I treat this as a hurdle-based system. So we assess initially on the 15th of October whether you meet our minimum entry requirements for GCSE and for A-level. Then we look at your Bmat scores and we rank all of our candidates from top to bottom, and then we will invite our top scoring candidates to interview. Those are usually between December to March, and they will be in a multiple mini interview format. If we make you an offer, it will be of A star to A's, with the A star to be in biology or chemistry. The important thing to say is that your third A level can be anything that you want it to be, except critical thinking and general studies. So if you want to study psychology or maths or physics or French or history or German or Spanish, that is entirely up to you, and I recommend that you choose a third subject that you are interested in, because you'll do well in it. It doesn't make any difference to have additional A-levels. Our offer will only ever be based on 3 A-levels. So I think it's useful for you to do some preparation, and I've put here the website medicalschoolscouncil.ac.uk. This is where medical schools, admissions tutors come together and create materials, freely available materials for applicants. So there's information on there about preparing your UCAS application, about work experience, about preparing for your interview. It is a fantastic resource and a really good way to make sure that you're up to speed. So unfortunately, medical school is a little bit competitive. There are a lot of students who wish to be in the healthcare profession, and that is brilliant. But as I mentioned earlier on, the country only has 7,500 places, and there are usually somewhere around 20,000 applicants every year to medical school. At UCL, we receive 4,000 applications every year for our 334 places. And so, unfortunately, some people will be disappointed. If you are an international student, you're overseas, we have 24 places. So the UK government caps our numbers at 7.5% of our cohort, and so that can't be exceeded. And we have around 1,000 applicants, international applicants every year. We will usually select somewhere around 800 applicants to come to interview. And as I say, that's on a rolling basis between December and March. The minimum academic requirements are listed there. They are in our prospectus. That is for 2023 entry. And so do make sure that if you're applying much later, if you're applying for 24 or 25 entry, that you keep an eye on the requirements because they do change each year. So just to highlight, if you've been to our website before, we have increased our entry requirements at A level to an A star in biology or chemistry. IB is still 39 points. We do have a contextual offer for students that are eligible for this. So you can check your eligibility for Access UCL on our website. And if you are eligible for that, then you will receive an offer of AAB with you to achieve the AA in biology and chemistry. So the biomedical admissions tests. So all applicants need to do that in the year of application. So if you are applying this October for 23 or deferred entry in 2024, you will need to sit your Bmat on the 18th of October. And the deadline for application is fast approaching. It's the end of next week. And so please do look at that if you haven't looked at it already. We publish the average scores on our website for the last 3 years. For those that were applying to us, for those who were shortlisted for interview, and for those who were then offered a place. You will see on our website that they vary quite a lot each year. And that is because the cohort who applies to us varies each year, and the scores that students achieve in Bmat every year does differ. So we don't have cut-off scores. We don't have a score that we can give you that tells you that you will be successful and you will have an interview. All I say to you is that you just need to do as well as you possibly can. The best thing that you can do to prepare for Bmat is to use the online past papers. They're there for every year since its inception in 2003, and they're freely available for you to download with the answers and do them in a timed fashion, so that you know exactly how long you've got for every MCQ and how long you have for the 30-minute essay, because it's 1 page and you need to practice it. Talk to people about your answers as well. That's the best way to learn, is if you've got somebody else in your school who's doing Bmat at the same time or applying to medical school, talk to them about the essay topics and have that academic conversation. If you are struggling to pay the cost of Bmat, please do look at the reimbursement, because it is available to students if you meet their eligibility criteria. And so please don't consider that as a barrier. So I've put the average scores here on the slide, but these are available on our website. As you can see, it does vary quite a lot each year. So that is why we only give an indication. We cannot give you a particular cutoff score that particular students were invited to interview. So preparing for your application. So we don't use your personal statement as part of our selection procedure. We don't score it, but I do think that your personal statement and writing it is a really useful part of the process to help you crystallize exactly your motivation, what you understand about a career in medicine, and what preparation you have done in order to demonstrate the skills, attributes, and behaviors that you have to become a doctor. So we will obviously look at your academic potential based upon your minimum entry requirements, what work experience that you have done, and how you've reflected upon it. Your understanding of the career, the positives, obviously, but also what are the challenges that are involved in a career in medicine? And what is your motivation? Why have you chosen this career? It's a long course, it's a vocation, it is a job for life that you'll be doing for the next 50 years. Why do you want to do it? And convince us when you are writing your personal statement and when you come to interview. But also think about the other qualities, your teamwork skills, your leadership skills, your communication skills, thinking about what you do to maintain your own work-life balance, because that is such a huge part of working in a healthcare setting, is making sure that you have things outside of medicine. And your ability to study independently. Have you thought about what it's like to make that transition into higher education? Your academic referee, we will have a look at that because it does often give us a little bit of information about circumstances. And so if there have been some difficulties during your A-level period that you want us to be aware of, it's worth getting your referee to put that in there. And so we do scan that for additional information. But again, it is not used as part of the selection procedure. So work experience. We've had a lot of questions about this over the last 3 years in particular, obviously, because there are many hospitals that have not been accepting students for work experience. I know that UCLH, for example, has just opened up in the last few weeks to accept some students. So we appreciate that you are all in the same position here, and that we, as admissions teams, will be taking the situation into account when we are thinking about your work experience. From my perspective, work experience is to give you an idea of what it is like to work in a workplace like the NHS. What is it like to be interested in people, to communicate with people, to understand what it is like to work in a team, to understand the challenges and the busyness of working in a healthcare setting. So it can be work in a pharmacy, it can be work in a lab, it can be non-clinical work experience. It can be your paid activity, because, you know, in a job, you have to get up, you've shown your commitment, you have to attend on time, you have to interact with other people all the time. So think and reflect on what skills that experience is actually giving you that you can transfer to a career in medicine. There's a lot of online work experience these days. So Brighton and Sussex Medical School and the Royal College of General Practitioners both have online work experience where there are doctors and medical students talking about clinical situations that you might be in, you might face as a doctor, that help you reflect on the career as in a medicine as well. So from my perspective, there is no minimum requirement or duration of work experience. It is quality, not quantity. And so do have a look at Medical Schools Council again. They do give you some good guidance on work experience. Interviews themselves. So we normally interview from beginning of December to the end of March. They will be in the multiple mini interview format, and they will be in person, but they will be online for those who are overseas. We recognise that quite a lot of the people who would be interviewed from overseas may not be able to travel to the UK. They're in winter months. The COVID situation may not yet be completely resolved by then. And so to keep it fair, we will interview all of our overseas applicants online. But everyone else, we will be inviting into London to meet us in person, which will be lovely. And as part of that, we will also offer you a tour of the campus and for your ability to meet some of our medical students. So all of our applicants will be provided more information about that when they apply in October. We'll let you know the average number of stations. There'll probably be somewhere between 6 and 8 stations. They're likely to be 5 minutes each. So very similar to other MMIs across other universities. We'll send you some example questions, but there are some really good examples and practice MMI stations on Medical Schools Council website. And I'd also recommend that you look at NHS values-based recruitment. Think about those values, think about how you might have demonstrated them, but also what you know about those particular values and why they are important for working in healthcare. So what I would suggest for your interview preparation is to think about how you have developed and demonstrated your interest in healthcare, how you can show your motivation, what is your motivation for the career. We will ask you about things like problem solving and your ability to reason, because that is part of being a doctor. We will explore your professional attitudes and your values, things like honesty, integrity, compassion, conscientiousness. So again, think about how you have already developed those skills. Perhaps you can provide examples to us of your teamwork, your leadership, how you've developed resilience, or what you know about resilience, and what are your individual strengths. And practice your communication skills. So practice talking to people, practice articulating why you want to study medicine, and think about your eye contact with us and how you can get across your point to somebody that you don't know. So my advice to you, studying medicine is tough. There is no doubt. It is a career. It is a vocation. It's a long course. You will accumulate debt as a consequence of it, unfortunately, and it is a long career afterwards with lots of working hours, but it is brilliant. It's a brilliant career. There is nothing more privileged than knowing about people, listening to people's stories, and hopefully being able to make a difference to someone's life. Carefully read each medical school website so that you are understanding of what their requirements are. Review Medical Schools Council website and their work experience documents. Try and keep up to date on healthcare topics. Talk to your family and friends about what's been in the news. You might say, gosh, I saw that this was going to change. Like they said this morning in the news here in the UK that they were going to hope to give patients appointments at general practices within 2 weeks. Do you think that that's realistic? Do you think that that might help? What other things might be done? So think about it reflectively. Reflect on what you already do. Do the timed practice Bmat papers, and don't give up. Yes, it is competitive. Yes, you might be unsuccessful the first time round, but if you really want to do it, take a gap year, reapply, go and do something else, go and do a different degree, go and work in a different healthcare profession. If you want to do it, then keep on doing it, and hopefully you will be successful. So thank you very much for listening to that. I've put a few websites on there that you can have a look at. Our medical school website, Medical Schools Council, Health Education England about values-based recruitment, and healthcare careers. Did you know that there are over 350 different NHS careers out there? And it may well be worth you having a look and doing that little bit of research about what else is out there for you. So thank you for that. I can see that there have been quite a lot of questions that have already been answered by my team. So thank you very much, team. I'm going to introduce some of them to you now, and then we will get on to the live Q&A. So first of all, I'd like you to meet Lima. So Lima is one of our medical students. She's just about to start year 2 on Monday, and she does tell me that she's excited, which is great. Welcome, Lima. We have Dr. Lal, who is one of our deputy programme leads, Professor Faye Gishen, who is the director of the medical school and head of the MBBS programme, Dr. Will Coppola, who is head of our student support service as well. And you can see Temi there on the screen. She might wave at you. She is our widening participation lead and gets involved in our target medicine activities, and it's great to have her here. There are a few other people who are there in the background. They will be answering questions from the admissions perspective, but won't be getting involved in the live Q&A. Brilliant. So the first question, do we get a recording of this session? Yes, you will. That will be available on the website. And I think that Kate Thomas, who's been in touch with you all, providing the links for this, will be able to provide you with a follow-up to the session as well. So the first question is maths the preferred A level? Not at all. So that third A level, you can study whatever you want except general studies or critical thinking. So if you would like to study maths, please go ahead. But if you would like to do physics or French, or you would like to do psychology or history or geography, please go ahead. That third subject is your free choice to decide. So it won't put you at an advantage or a disadvantage to do anything else. So hopefully we've answered that. Interviews, will they be in person or online? So hopefully I answered that in the presentation, that they will be in person for home-based students, and they'll be online for all of our international students as well. So the best apps and materials to revise for Bmat. So Lima, I'm going to come to you for this one. Tell me a little bit more about how you prepared for your Bmat and any tips that you can give.
So I think that's a really good question, and it's something that I've heard many times, and it's even one that I also used to have back when I was in year 12, so it was quite a while ago for me. Honestly, the only thing that really will help is just using the practice papers on the official Bmat website. There are loads of paid courses out there, loads of like online things, but none of that is necessary because all the practice you need is on the Bmat website, and there are hundreds and hundreds of questions that you can go through. So I found that really helpful for myself. And I also liked working with other people who were also sitting the Bmat that year. So we would do questions by ourselves, and then we'd meet up and go through different questions with each other to see like what we got and to help each other if we didn't get something right. So I think working together as well with other people in your situation is really helpful. So I think those are the only things that you really need. I think nowadays there are more resources coming out that are free, for example, on YouTube. So you might want to get some advice from other medical students who like have sat the Bmat themselves. But yeah, I definitely recommend the Bmat website.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lima. I would absolutely agree. So you can sign up on the Bmat website, on Cambridge Assessment website, for their webinars and for getting regular updates on Bmat as well. And actually they are incredibly useful because they go through each section. They often have a medical student on those webinars as well to give you some tips and advice. But the freely available resources on the website and doing those in a timed fashion is the most important way to help revise for it. Thank you, Lima. That's very helpful. So Faye, I might come to you next if that's all right. So there's a question about the BSc and why this might be useful for students.
So nice to see you, everyone. Very exciting that you're considering applying to UCL Medical School, and some of you will become UCL doctors. So that's really exciting for us on the call. Regarding the BSc, not all medical schools have a compulsory BSc, so we're a little bit unusual, although there are others that do. Obviously, if you're a graduate who already holds a BSc, you won't be required to do another one. But a BSc, I mean, some of us on the call did a BSc as part of medical school. I think it gives a really excellent insight. First of all, you get to explore a subject in more detail, to do some research around that subject, to work with clinicians and researchers in the field. So it's developing a whole nother skill set really that will help you in medicine, and it will help you look at evidence and appraise the literature. So it's a different, I think our students would say as well, it's a different sort of pace to some of the other years in the MBBS. So it's a really fantastic opportunity. I did one, I have never regretted it, and you know, others did too. It's a very valuable year.
Thank you, Faye. Yes, I did a BSc at UCL in pharmacology. And yeah, it was a very different year, and I think it is really a benefit. And the reason that we do it at UCL is because we think it is of importance for your future career as well, that you understand evidence-based practice, that you have developed some academic writing skills as a consequence, and you've met some different people. And so it is a really, really good thing for you to do. Okay, so the next question is about the interviews themselves and what is looked at or what is looked for at interview. Dr. Lau, you gave a great response to this morning. So what are you looking for from a student at interview?
Thanks, Sarah. So welcome, everybody. Lovely that you could all join us. I also did a BSc at King's in embryology, of all things. I'm desperately trying to remember what it was that I said this morning that was so good. So at interviews, what we're not trying to do is catch you out. So I think that's the most important thing. We're not trying to trick you, trip you up and make you appear a fool. What we want to do is look beyond the superficial exam grades and the Bmat score. That shows that you're academically able to cope with the course. But what we want to do is scratch below that and dig into what sort of a person you are, whether you're a caring person, an empathic person, what are your communication skills like? Why is it that you want to devote your life? And it really is, to some extent, devoting your life to a medical degree. And I think if you talk to the elderly doctors that are around, we're also looking for somebody who we think we would trust to be a colleague of ours, but also potentially to look after us when we have to call upon the NHS. And that's what we're looking for. So it's certainly not looking to trip you up. It's about, we're after well-rounded people who are going to fit in and become good doctors.
I think that's a great answer. Thank you, Rune. It is exactly that, is that we can only find out a certain amount of information from a UCAS application. Now we want to know a bit more about you. We want to know that you understand and appreciate the values that are required to work within a healthcare setting, and that you have demonstrated that you are working towards those values and that you understand what it is to have a career in medicine. And so again, not catching you out. I think the worst thing to do is to over prepare for your interview and to be robotic and to give us learned answers. The best thing that you can do is to be yourself. I know that's hard sometimes. You think that we're trying to look for something, but we want to know more about you. So be yourself, be honest, be genuine, and give us examples of things that you've done as you've gone along to prepare. So a couple of questions here that are about the application process that I might just answer rapidly. So the question is about how Bmat will be used. So hopefully that was answered in the presentation. There won't be a cutoff score because we have to see what the range of scores are for the applicants who apply this year, and it will depend on how many we interview. So that varies from year to year, and so we can't give you a particular score. And as I said in the presentation, just do the best that you can. I know that there's a lot of comparison and competition that goes on amongst our prospective applicants, but try not to compare yourself to others and just do the best that you can. Do we value the EPQ when considering applicants? So I would suggest here that you think about what the skills are that the EPQ is giving you, because we don't make it part of our scoring. We don't have it as part of our offer because we recognise that not all applicants have the opportunity to study an EPQ. If you are, then it's giving you some good research skills. It's thinking about your academic writing skills. It might give you something that you want to talk about at interview, but you can also achieve that in other ways through doing massive open online courses, doing some research yourself, developing writing skills through other means as well. And so don't feel that that is an advantage or a disadvantage to be doing an EPQ or not. And the last question I'll come to myself is about using section 3 of the Bmat this year. So we will be using it as part of the scores, looking at it for selection process, but we will not be using the essay as part of the interview. So again, do the best that you can, get the best score that you can in your essay, and that will help contribute to you doing better in the rankings to be able to be offered an interview. Okay, so I'm going to come to Dr. Coppola next, if possible, for a question about support and what support is available to students when they come onto the programme.
Okay, thank you for that. again, welcome to everybody. We're very glad to have you. Student support is something we take very importantly at UCL Medical School. There is a university-based support service which applies to all students at the university, and the medical school has its very own dedicated support service as well. So, and the advantage of that is that obviously we are familiar with the programme. We understand the particular challenges that medical students have, which may be different from students in other disciplines. There are special rules and regulations which apply to medicine as a discipline because it's a regulated profession. And so the rules that apply to our degree are sometimes slightly different from those of a standard bachelor's degree. And our understanding of that helps us give good advice to students if they're in difficulty. We have a comprehensive team of people dedicated to being there for you, to support you, and provide access to face-to-face or online support appointments throughout the year, including the holidays if necessary. We do integrate to some extent with the university service and make sure that if there's a particular service provided by the university that you're signposted to that. For example, psychological services for students with psychological problems, mental health problems. We don't deal with those internally, but we help you get access to the right services for you elsewhere. As I said, I think the fact that we have a relatively low dropout rate at UCL, I think it is in part due to our great selection procedures, and also in part due to the fact that we think we look after you quite well. So it's really only students who decide that medicine is not for them who end up leaving our programme, and very rarely is it the case that they leave because of either a health or personal problem, or because they've failed their exams. And exam failure often is a reflection of students not being happy rather than that you're not academically capable, because we know that all of the students we interview and accept are likely to be very capable students. Sometimes medicine's not for you, and if that's the case, we try and help you identify that as soon as possible and support you in looking at other careers. But that's a very small number of students in my experience, a tiny number in fact, but we need to be there for you for any kind of problem, and that's what the medical school support service offers you. So please feel that you'll be welcome, and that you will be that there are people here to help you, and that is our job, to help you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Will. We're very lucky that we have our own support team within the medical school itself, and we recognise that it's a lengthy degree, that things happen, life happens actually when you get a bit older, and sometimes you will need some help from us, and we strongly encourage students to come and seek support. That we are quite friendly, and we do want to help. We want you to be successful, and we want you to thrive on our programme. So the next question, I'm going to come to Lima again. There's the usual question that has come up about what sort of reading should you do for your application?
So that's also a really good question. I think there are loads of different resources out there in terms of reading. There's not like a specified list of what you should read, because it's honestly up to you. But there are lots of books written by doctors themselves who talk about their experiences, which you might find interesting. I remember reading When Breath Becomes Air, and that was an amazing book, and I wrote about that in my personal statement. So yeah, that's I guess a recommendation for you. There are also books that are just about science, so you can explore your own scientific interests and reflect on that, and maybe go beyond and do your own research projects or do other extracurricular things that can link on to what you're reading. So yeah, anything that you find interesting and that you can relate to medicine is a good idea.
That's really helpful, Lima. And it is true, there isn't a recommended reading list. There isn't a particular book that will get you an interview. But what I do suggest is you read something that is interesting to you and use that opportunity to find out more about medicine and healthcare, because actually there are so many books out there that are written by doctors, by nurses, by other healthcare professionals, about scientists, about treatments, etc. And that is to help widen your learning and widen your interest in medicine, as well as being preparation for interviews. And if you do read something and you have put it on your personal statement, do make sure that you're able to talk about it. So whilst we're not using your personal statement as part of our selection procedure, we may well use your personal statement within the MMI as one of the stations, and some other medical schools might do as well. So it's well worth making sure that you're fully aware of what you have written and that you are able to talk about it and you're able to give your opinions about something, because it isn't your opinion per se that we want to hear, but we want to be able to hear how you articulate your argument and your views. That's what we want to see at interview. Brilliant. So we have about 10 minutes to go for this session. We will answer some more questions. My fabulous team have been typing away in the background and hopefully answering lots of the questions for you. I can see in the chat that there are quite a lot of very individual questions that are about your particular circumstances. And what I would suggest is that you send that in as an email to us. So if you're asking about particular A-levels that you're taking or particular different circumstances and whether you're eligible, the best thing to do is to email in to undergraduate-admissions@ucl.ac.uk, and then you can get a full answer from the admissions team. So just bear in mind, we might not answer some of those directly in the Q&A, but we can answer them on email. So I am going to come back to Lima again, I'm afraid. Accommodation. So this often comes up. So the question is asking about whether medics are put together in accommodation, which they're not. But I wondered if you might just talk about commuting as an option.
Yeah, so personally, during first year, I stayed at home, and for this year, I'm also staying at home. And I think one of the main worries that I've heard students talk about is the cost of traveling into central London from zone 4, 5 or 6. And it is true, it can get expensive, but there is a lot of support out there for students who, for example, come from lower income backgrounds or who have emergency situations where they might need funding. So it's always worth, asking and reaching out for any financial support that you might need. And I think also budgeting and the whole university experience of learning to budget your money is also really important, because it can, when you get that student finance, you can easily be tempted. But yeah, budgeting and learning how to allocate your money wisely is a skill that you will learn and you'll get better at. So I think the cost of traveling into central London becomes less of a worry and you're more able to focus on your studies. So yeah, there's a lot of support available. So don't worry about that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lima. And do you feel that you were able to interact with all your colleagues in the same way, even though you were commuting?
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't feel like I was left out at all, because there are loads of society events, loads of, friends and all sorts of people that you'll meet, not just during lectures, but also, in those societies. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunity to make friends and meet other people.
Fantastic. So accommodation for UCL is spread far and wide, actually, across London. There's lots of accommodation that's within walking distance of the university, but there are accommodation blocks that are much further out. Some accommodation is en suite, some accommodation is shared. So you are able to put in an application with your preferences, but they can't guarantee which accommodation you might be in. So for example, I stayed at I4 Evans Hall in Camden, and so there was a bit of a walk. There was a 30-minute walk from Camden every day, but that certainly helped us to keep fit in the morning and in the evening. But it was great, and you are placed in accommodation with everybody from all different walks of life, from different backgrounds, from international students to home students to postgraduate students to students on all sorts of different courses. And so I think that that's a really nice thing, actually. It really helps you to meet lots of new people right from the beginning. And there's lots of information about accommodation and lots of pictures and 360-degree views of the accommodation on the UCL website that you can have a look at. So another question to Lima, I'm sorry. What does the first year timetable look like?
So I think the first year timetable has quite a variety of different things, although I think it is mostly led by lectures. So if I would go through a random day, I would come in at 9 AM to go for my lectures. We'd probably have a few lectures each day and around maybe 10 to 12 per week. So that might sound like a lot, but you get used to it over time and you learn to adapt. So we have those lectures. We also have tutorials that can be once a week, maybe once every fortnight, which is a really good opportunity to discuss different topics with your peers as well as an expert in the field. So those are also really helpful, and that's more of a smaller group teaching. We also have the Cpp Sessions, which is clinical teaching, where we learn clinical skills, we learn about interacting with patients, and we even get to speak to patients as well. I personally, we did it online, but hopefully maybe in the upcoming years, it might go back into person, who knows. So that's that. And I think, yeah, we also have anatomy, definitely not forget anatomy. That's one of the highlights of first year, I would say. And as Dr. Sarah Bennett mentioned before, it's a full body dissection, which is a privilege, and it's also very unique because not a lot of medical schools get to do that. So it's that opportunity to apply your anatomical knowledge to like a real human body, which is fascinating. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can learn in UCL, and it's all about getting used to these new skills that you'll be introduced to.
Fantastic, that's really helpful, Lima. I think the key thing is that every week is different, which is very different to school, where you have a timetable and your timetable is sort of fixed for the whole year of when you study biology, when you study chemistry, when you have this particular session. Whereas it's not like that at university. You have modules that are different lengths, and you have different activities each week. And so some weeks you might have 10 hours of lectures, other weeks you might have 4 or 5 hours of lectures, but you might have clinical skills or anatomy sessions and practical procedures that happen that week. Or you might go and have some shadowing at some point, or you have your clinical and professional practice sessions. So it is very varied, and that's can be a bit of a shock when you first start, that you don't have a timetable for the whole year, and you usually get timetables a couple of weeks in advance as well. Brilliant. So we've got 2 minutes to go. So I am going to come back to Lima for my final question. Your top tips for applying to medical school.
Oh, top tips. There's a lot of different things running through my mind right now, but I would say number one is be yourself. It's so easy to try and make this persona and try to be this ideal applicant that really doesn't exist, because there are so many different types of medical students. So it's all about showing off your personality, your skills, and yeah, really showing who you are as a person. I would also say reflection is really important for you to use, not in just your personal statement, but also interviews. And it's a skill you will use throughout medical school and life as a doctor. So really work on reflecting on those experiences, those skills that you've learnt, how they will help you become a better doctor. And yeah, I think those are probably my 2 top tips. Yeah.
I love that. That's great. I would absolutely agree. Is that it is a long journey to apply to medicine, to think about all of the aspects of the application, to put yourself out there, to demonstrate what sort of skills and attributes you actually have, and to be reflective. That is probably a new thing to you, to think about what you have actually learned, what you think is unusual, what is surprising, what do you think is challenging. And so that might be quite different and quite difficult to do to begin with. But be yourself, You can do it. Believe in yourself, and good luck. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll end the webinar there. Bye-bye.